Hello everybody, welcome back to the next installment in my series of my favorite 100 albums. This will be covering albums 60 through 51, and again, as I've said at the beginning of all the other videos, these are my personal choices. This isn't, official by any means. These aren't even the greatest albums of all time. They're just my personal favorites. So it's just how I feel, and if any of these are your favorite albums, let me know in the comments, because it's cool. If my albums are in the 50s, that it might be your number one. So nothing wrong with that. But these are my favorites. So let's start with number 60. I'm going to go with indie band Death Cab for Cutie and their album Plans. Death Cab for Cutie is out of Seattle. It's the project of Benjamin Gibbard, and that name might sound familiar to Monkees fans because Ben Gibbard wrote the song Me and Magdalena on the album Good Times by the Monkees. But this is probably their most commercially successful album. You've got songs on here that were fairly popular on the radio in the early 2000s. This came out in 2005. Songs like the big song was I Will Follow You Into the Dark, which is one of my favorites to play on guitar. Soul Meets Body was a moderate hit. Marching Bands of Manhattan. But then there's also some beautiful songs. I think my favorite on the album is called Brothers on a Hotel Bed, which is essentially, about you love somebody, but you don't have that feeling of romantic love anymore. It's like you're sitting together on the bed, but you don't want to be too close. I mean, you're like, brothers like that don't want to be close to each other, sitting on the same side of the couch or the bed or whatever it is. So just really beautiful lyrics. Some people consider this emo in the early 2000s, but I think it's just really good songwriting. And that's number 60. Number 59, an album by one of my favorite modern bands. This is True Sadness by the Avett Brothers. This is their album. It came out in 2016, produced by Rick Rubin on the American label. This was when I was really starting to get into the Avett Brothers. There they are. They're the two brothers on either end, Scott and Seth, and there's Bob Crawford, longtime bassist, founding bassist. And then you have the rest of the boys and gals there. Joe Kwan is the unofficial fourth member. And just a great album. It's kind of got a mix of a lot of different elements that they would be using in the follow-up album, Closer Than Together. But you have a song on here called Smithsonian that John Prine could have written. And perhaps one of their most beautiful songs called No Hard Feelings, which is one of the best vocals by Seth Avett. They kind of got like a Tex-Mex vibe with Victims of Life. They've kind of got like an old Campfire, Sons of the Pioneer song with Divorce, Separation Blues. Then they've kind of got like a funky stomp clap with the opening track, Ain't No Man. So just a really, really fun album. True Sadness by the Avett Brothers is number 59. Number 58, let's bring it back to the Fab Four. This is Help by the Beatles. This is their fifth album, obviously the second full-length motion picture that the Beatles put out in color. And, what can you say that hasn't already been said about the Beatles? This has big hits on here. Help, is the big hit. Ticket to Ride was huge. And Yesterday, obviously. All, again, just massive hits. And then you've got great cuts like The Night Before, a great raspy vocal by Paul. Probably my favorite song on the album, which is I Need You, which is a jangly kind of guitar song by George. You've got Ringo's cover of Act Naturally, the Buck Owens song. You've got A Hydra Love Away. Dizzy Miss Lizzy is probably the weakest point, which is the cover at the end. I've Just Seen a Face, one of my favorites, which was also covered by the Dillards. So this is number 58, the Beatles. Number 57, another independent group. This is the Decemberist album, The King is Dead. And I know my friend Robert S. really likes this album. Colin Malloy is the lead singer, but you've got some great other players on here. Gillian Welch is all over this album. You've got some other like bluegrass type players, even though it's not a bluegrass album. But Peter Buck plays on here from REM. Let's see who else is on here. Like I said, Gillian Welch. She sings a lot of the background vocals on here. And they're just really cool because the Decemberists, they pull out a lot of like historical lyrics, and they're very smart and well read. So again, just a great album. David Rawlings is on here, who is Gillian Welch's husband. So I mean, it's a fantastic album. It's got acoustic, it's got rock, The song "Down by the River" was kind of a moderate radio song, but there's also some beautiful songs on here like "Rocks in the Box," "January Hymn," um, "This Is Why We Fight," and it's kind of the vibe you get there. So that's number 57. 56, probably the Who's most classic album, Who's Next. Again, love this album. I wish it would have been fully formed as the Lighthouse Project by Pete Townsend. But again, you've got Baba O'Reilly on here. You've got Getting in Tune, The Song Is Over, Going Mobile, Behind Blue Eyes, and then, the closer of, Won't Get Fooled Again. It's just a masterpiece of an album. I mean, any album that starts with Baba O'Reilly and then closes with Won't Get Fooled Again is classic. So, not much more to say about it. It's the Who at their ultimate peak. So that is number 56, right? Yeah. 55, kind of a curveball here. Bob Dylan's Shadows in the Night. This is from 2015. This is Bob Dylan's first in his trilogy of Sinatra / crooner albums that he did. So in 2012, Dylan released his album Tempest, which was up until 2020 his last album of original material in for almost a decade. And so 3 years later we get this single that comes out of Stay With Me, and we're seeing Dylan do covers of kind of some more obscure songs that Sinatra covered. He never fully called this a Sinatra tribute album, but he covered all songs that Sinatra did. So you've got deeper cuts like I'm a Fool to Want You, Stay With Me, Why Try to Change Me Now, Full Moon and Empty Arms, Where Are You Now? But he also did Autumn Leaves, The Night We Called It a Day, Some Enchanted Evening, and I just really, really like it. It's Dylan getting his voice back a little bit, and this album and the two that followed it really did wonders to strengthen his voice. So I'm really, really a big fan of Shadows in the Night in particular. So that is number 55. Yeah, 54, the debut by one of my other favorite songwriters, Mr. John Prine. Absolutely love this album. And for me, for John Prine, he's one of the few artists that I just like the songs versus like albums per se, because his albums aren't necessarily put together like, to listen to all the way through necessarily. He's just got so many great songs that are just out there that I just love. And I knew dozens of John Prine songs before I even knew albums. So that's really the reason why this is so low. But I mean, this is a greatest hits for John Prine fans. If you don't know John Prine, get this album first, the self-titled. I mean, you've got Illegal Smile, Spanish Pipe Dream, Hello in There, Sam Stone, Paradise, Pretty Good, all of which are on side A, all of which were essentially concert staples for most of his life. Side 2, you've got Your Flag Decal, Won't Get You to Heaven Anymore, Far From Me, one of my favorites. Probably his biggest hit, Angel from Montgomery, which was covered by Bonnie Raitt. Quiet Man, Donald and Lydia, 6 O'Clock News, and Flashback Blues. So, 54, John Prine. 53, TP and the H, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Into the Great Wide Open, from 1991, produced by Jeff Lynne. This was kind of the follow-up to Full Moon Fever, whereas Full Moon Fever was a solo album by Tom Petty with Jeff Lynne. The Heartbreakers kind of had their feathers ruffled a little bit, so they wanted to see what Jeff Lynne could do with the Heartbreakers. And it's a great album. Does it sound like the Heartbreakers? No. I mean, because you have Mike Campbell on Full Moon Fever, and obviously you have him on this as well. So that sound alone sounds like the Heartbreakers. It's like everything else, it sounds like Jeff Lynne production, which some love and some hate. I personally love it. But, I mean, you have the big hits on here were Learning to Fly and Into the Great Wide Open. But you've also got a beautiful anti-violence, anti-war song called Two Gunslingers. The Dark of the Sun is probably my favorite on the album. Although All the Wrong Reasons is a great anthemic song. Just check it out. It's just so good. Making Some Noise is the heavy rocker, probably like more comparable with Running Down a Dream. You and I Will Meet Again is kind of a great send-off, even though it ends with the song Built to Last. So that's number 53. Number 52, Van the Man, with his 1991 album, also, ironically, Hymns to the Silence. I can thank my mom for getting me into this, and this is one that's out of print, and I know it was one that my mom always was looking for, and a few years ago I found it on eBay, and I bought a couple of copies, one for her and one for me, and it's a 2-disc album by Van. Again, just fantastic stuff, like Why Must I Always Explain, By His Grace, All Saints Day. It's Van. He's poetic, and I mean, it's got some great Van Morrison songs on there. It's really overlooked because of all the stuff that he had put out prior, and people kind of dismissed him in this period of his career. But if you don't know Hymns to the Silence, check it out. I know my friend Randy Nelson can attest to that. And to close off this list at number 51, I've talked about this album several times. This is The Devil Makes Three, Redemption and Ruin, off of New West Records. The Devil Makes Three are kind of like a bluegrass punk band, if you will. And this is a covers album that they did, covering half the album of kind of like Stay Up All Night, Drink, Hell Raise, that kind of stuff. And the second half of the album, which is the Redemption half, is some gospel songs and some hymns and some just like things to, enlighten you. So like you've got songs on here by Robert Johnson, Muddy Waters, Willie Nelson, Christofferson, Townes Van Zandt, the Stanley Brothers, the Charlie Monroe, Hank Williams, and you've got people on here like Tim O'Brien, Jerry Douglas, a couple of the guys from Old Crow Medicine Show were on here. Absolutely fantastic album. Check it out, Redemption and Ruin. So that's it. I still went a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I can't help but talk about these albums. So let me know what you think. Let me know if I made any mistakes. I probably screwed up the numbers here at some point. But yeah, 60 through 51. So join me next time. In the meantime, y'all be good. Take care. Talk to y'all real soon. Bye now.